Brendon Manuel from originally from Bunteen. We used to farm there for 2 years. We've been here for 16 years. Our farming is mainly grains, wheat, barley, lupins and canola. And I farm here with mum and dad, and yeah, I've been on a farm now for 18 years. Before that, I was an electrician, so I did a trade in Perth as a sparky, and then came home and spent 3 years in Dalwallinu as a sparky there, and then after that, came home and farm. So on our farm, we have predominantly sand over gravel, or there's a few loams, but there is also yellow sand and white sand that we base a lot of our trial work around. And generally our white and yellow sands we use for loop and wheat rotation, and the other gravelly sands for a barley, wheat, canola rotation in recent times. Rainfall here, we're usually up around 300 mil for the growing season, but it hasn't been like that for a while. This year is around that 180, 190 mil of rain with 100 mil of summer rain, so thankfully we had summer rain. Our pHs are quite reasonable considering we've only been here for 16 years. They'd be up in the high fives, just touching on 6 in some areas. After we've turned the paddocks over with the moldboard, they are bringing up 4.5s, and they would be now, would have brought them back up to over 5.2, so we've still got some work to do there. Where the trial site is, that would definitely be without soil testing it in the 6s, low 6s. It's had quite a bit of lime on it over the time. Our biggest constraint here would have been ryegrass and non-wetting soil, and the moldboard ploughs come out of the non-wetting soil where we've done it, and the ryegrass is a work in progress. Every time we use the ripper, it's stimulated ryegrass, and where we can wait for a knockdown and you get good early starts, we can really get on top of it, but some of the years haven't allowed us to do it. The trial was based around some previous work we've done with the moldboard plough that's behind me, and that was to try and manipulate the size of the head that we can grow without having to do too much more. By ploughing, we found that the heads, without rolling it, the heads would be substantially taller. They'd be up around 14 high, 12 to 14 high. If we rolled it, they'd be back down to the normal size, 7, 8, 9 high. Although we got better establishment with rolling it, it'd still out yield it with not rolling it, just with a retro bar that we made. So the idea of the trial was to try and replicate that, because of wind erosion we can't plough unless it's wet and can't do that much. If we could rip, and not only rip once, but rip either closer together or rip twice to try and manipulate the size of the head, hoping that whatever the plough was doing, we could replicate with the ripper. It has worked, but only for in a small amount, not as much as I was hoping for. And it still does go with the soil amelioration and liming and things like that, whether there's anything there to be seen that we didn't do with the ripper this year. So the trial was set up with a 0 ripping plot, a full length, maybe a K long, and then the middle plot was double deep ripped at, I think they're about 16 metres wide, and then the inside plot was just single deep ripped. So it had to be over a fair distance so we can measure it with conventional gear with a header. So far the rippings bring up a lot of ryegrass, so it may distort some figures, but to this far the crops are way out in front by being deep ripped. Today they're still marginally greener, only if you know where you're looking, but definitely the 0 deep ripping has got slightly smaller heads. Double deep ripping has got consistently higher heads, but only by 10 or 12%. And the single deep ripping is better than this, the 0 ripping, but yeah, it's very, very hard to see, and perhaps not enough over a broad scale to see if we'll get a yield difference. I would definitely look at it again, and probably will deep rip it again May need a little bit of levelling out, but it's going to end going to canola, so I'm not too sure what we're going to find in the canola. Definitely in wheat you can physically see the difference. We have got deep rip canola this year, and once it gets to a certain stage, it becomes very much whatever goes in the front of the header, and whether there's a yield difference or not there. But it's, it'd be interesting in 2 years whether I went back and did it again and see if there was a difference there after a break crop, and then, double deep ripping. Effectively it would have been double deep ripped if I ripped it again. And if we can get another 10 or 15% and a consistent head size that's larger, then it's possibly a win, I suppose. Mobile ploughing was for 2 years. So we saw in the very first year was, way out in front of anything that we've ever seen before. And then the second year we often put lupins on it, and you didn't see the result with the lupins. You just knew that they were still working because they grew into giants. Like they were a lot bigger, but subject to chemical as well once it's been turned over. But then after that, once you put a wheat crop back on it, you saw the second wheat crop was still substantially bigger heads and a lot healthier plants. So next year we'll be ripping some moldboard ploughed country to see if and I'll probably run some trials in there and leave a gap with a zero ripping line to see if we're going to get back those taller heads. I took part in the trial because I did win a prize at last year's Liebe group because I filled the form in properly, and it just happened to be that they wanted someone to do some trials on soil health and biology that happens in the soil, and perhaps by aerating it in different ways, that's what's happening. I don't know, but that's why I went in the trial, because it was something I actually wanted to do. And it's been a really good experience. There's people there that are a lot younger than me, by probably 5 or 6, 10 years, but they're good ideas that they've got, and catching up with another generation of people has been good. The Gen Y Paddock Challenge has been great to be part of. It's got some really up and coming farmers that are trialling new things, and hopefully all the results come back and are really positive.